Learn how to use Ajax and the XML/HTTP request objects to fetch data from a web server. In the early days of the internet, if you want to see a new data on a website, you have to click on a link and wait for the entire web page to reload. But in this example, we want to look at how you can make use of Ajax and XML HTTP request objects in order to fetch web data from web server in the background and update specific part of a web page without performing a full page reload. So let's move into the script stack where we're going to be looking at an example for Ajax and the XML HTTP request. Now, what exactly does Ajax stands for? Well, Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So it's completely help us to change how web pages or website works when it comes to getting information without a full page reload. So when the user is browsing, so JavaScript can securely send a request to the server, grab a piece of information like a text file or database update, and slip it right into the page seamlessly without a page reload, no screen flashing, or a reload required. So let's look at what an example of Ajax and XML request looks like. So I'm already inside the script tag, and let's make a function, and let's assume that, or let's imagine that we want to load, say, a document. So let's name our function load doc, assuming we want to load a document. And now inside this document, we'll go ahead and make a variable and call it let's call it xhttp. And this xhttp is going to call on this new xml request. So the XML request is an object. Now, if I move over it, now look at it. XML HTTP request object are used to interact with servers. You can retrieve data from a URL without having to do a full page refresh. This enables a web page to update just part of a page without disrupting what the user is doing. So these are some of the built-in objects into JavaScript. So I'm just calling it. You can see new HTTP request, and inside it you can put the opening and closing brackets like this. So you call it like you will call it like this way because it's a method. You can see I'm putting the opening and closing brackets. So the new XML HTTP request. So this contains an object, but you can see this is denoting it to be a method. That is, if I eventually want to pass anything inside this or want to put any code, then I can go ahead and do just that. So having done this with this variable, then my variable xhtp that I have, so I can take this variable with whatever is returned from here and call on an unload property. And this lets me now pass the function into that. And inside this function, I basically just want to add document.get element by id method, and I'm passing my id of demo dot inner html, and inside it I'll just use this keyword to refers to the response tag. That is, whatever is returned from this function should be saved inside this xhtp dot unload. So I can just come down here, say xhtp dot whatever is gotten dot open, and inside this open method, then I can pass what I want to be read. And also, if I have a text, let's assume that I have a text like this: Ajax info dot txt, and then xhtp dot send But right now, you are not going to see anything in my display part of this screen because there's no way that you can either click something or anything. So let me quickly go ahead and make this file and call it Ajax info.txt. And inside it, let's say I just put text or ipsum or anything. So I can now go back and come inside my HTML section and let me just add the button, and inside this button I can put a text and say change content. So let me give this ID of BTN, also an on-click property. So this should fire anytime this button is clicked. So let me pass the function to it. And if I go ahead and click on change content, obviously nothing is changing. So let's inspect to see what the problem could be. Now on code reference, Ajax info is not defined. So that is coming from here. Oh, sorry. I'm supposed to add a quote around it like this. So let me go ahead. Now cannot get Ajax. This is inside the root folder. Now you can see the content of my Ajax info.txt, which is this. I just put this simple text inside of it. So if I make it, if I added something more to it, lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum, lorem ipsum. Now just take a look at what is going to happen on the page. So if I go ahead and click the content, change content, you can see that there's nothing like a page reload before I was able to get the content of what I have inside this file on the page. So this example demonstrates a web page that display the content that we saved in an external file, and then we're using the method that we have inside this place to retrieve its content without a full page reload. So once we click on the change content, JavaScript just go in the background to fetch the content, and once it is ready, it immediately play it to us on the screen. So this part of our code, which is this line, is what creates an instance of the built-in browser object that is designed to handle data transfer between the browser and the server. And the XHTTP.onload is a callback function. This waits patiently, so it triggers automatically the exact moment the server successfully responds and finishes loading the requested data. And this dot response text is something that is inside our unload function, and it's referred to the XHTTP object. So the response text property holds the raw string data that was retrieved from the server file, which is our Ajax info.txt, and we are using the XHTTP.open to configure the request details. So it sets the HTTP method to get that, which is used for fetching data, and specify the target URL or file name. In our case, we are making use of a file name. And finally, the XHTTP send method actually fire out the request into the network because it runs asynchronously. The rest of the JavaScript doesn't lock up or pause while waiting for the server to reply. So this is how you can make use of the Ajax XML HTTP request object in order to refresh part of your page without a full page reload.